Okay, fourth grade, welcome back to your grade level link. And for our project, what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a three-dimensional sculpture using the idea of a grid. Now, New York City was mapped out using a grid layout. So what you wanna do is when you have your surface, I'm using a piece of cardboard, you're going to need a ruler and you wanna create a grid. A grid is a series of lines that go vertically and horizontally to create almost like a piece of graph paper. And when the architects designed New York City, they put everything into avenues and streets and into different blocks. And it helped make it easy to navigate throughout the city. So using your piece of cardboard, I'm going to create a grid by putting a line down the middle. That's going to be the middle of my street. And now I'm going to go across and create streets that cross that way. And I think I will also Okay, now you can be really detailed and you can measure out the distance between your streets and your streets that go that way. But I just did it pretty quickly just to show you the idea of what I want you to make. Now, using your grid, once you have it laid out, I want you to take a little bit of paint, and again, I'm using cardboard, so you can use a piece of paper to do this at home. And the first thing I want to do is I want to paint over my grid to create my street lines. So there are my lines running up and down. And I have some white paper here. It's a little bit thicker than computer paper, but you might have good luck with computer paper. This is what I just happen to have in my little studio here. So I am going to take it and I'm going to roll it up, and I need a glue stick. And one of the things you want to focus on in this project is scale and proportion. Scale and proportion are so important in art because it helps you to make things that are the right size. So when you make your buildings, you don't want a huge building next to a building that big. It's not going to look to scale. It's not going to look like it's in proportion. So when you make this, you want to have an idea that all the buildings need to be almost the same thickness. So when I roll this up, notice I put the glue up a little bit further. And I'm just going to glue that. And if I bring this back over to my grid, these buildings are too big. So what I need to do is open this back up while it's still wet. And roll this up. Try to make it even so your buildings are nice and level. Okay, so I rolled it up into a tube. See how I did that? And now using my grid, I can see that these buildings are going to be a nice size. Now these are pretty tall. So one tube can create a couple buildings. So you cut your tube. Now we've done things like this in art class. And just to remind you on how to make a rectangle, you start with a tube and you flatten it down so it's squashed. And then you take it and you squash it the opposite way. And that will give you 4 sides, like a building. Do you see that? So I'm going to use my hot glue. But if you have Elmer's glue, what you can do is you open up your glue and you pour some out, and you just dip your building in and you stick it onto your grid. But to save some time, I'm going to go ahead and use my trusty hot glue gun over here and just run a little glue, and I'm going to put my first building on the corner of my grid here. And all I'm going to keep doing is I'm going to keep making different buildings that are different heights. And you do want to leave maybe a little space in between, although I do know some buildings in New York City are pretty much right on top of each other. And you will see how your buildings start forming a scale model of a city. So I'm going to keep going and adding my buildings into my grid. Now, what's nice as a sculpture, boys and girls, is you want to look at how the city looks from the top, like the skyline. You want to have a variety of shapes moving throughout your city. Once you get the hang of making your rectangles, I actually make the whole rectangle. Now you see that's a really tall building. I think that might be a little out of proportion for my city. You obviously can make it any way you want, and you can have buildings super high. But I want to just focus on the idea of scale. Do you see, if I look at it from what they call an aerial point of view, an aerial point of view is when you look at it from the sky, like you're looking down into a helicopter. You can see how my city is starting to take shape on the grid. I love looking at it like that too, and I love looking at it from an angle. And we're going to do something really cool with this at the end. So don't give up and keep making the buildings, because the more you put, the better it's going to look. Now, boys and girls, I'm going to be painting my city. And you can certainly paint all your buildings first before you lay them onto your grid. But because I wanted to show you the project, I went ahead and just left them white. But now you can see all the different sides. But how cool is that city starting to look? I think I'm going to put a couple more on and then show you the next step. So boys and girls, here's my city so far. And I obviously can go in and I can add more. But at this point, I am going to paint it so I can show you the next step. So I'm just going to unplug my hot glue gun there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my paint, and I have some brown, and I have some black, and I have some blue and some gray. And I'm just going to blend them together. And I'm using watercolor paint with some water, but you might have Sharpie that you can work with. And I'm just going to kind of dry brush. And I happen to love seeing a lot of the white. I think that makes it more sculptural, because I don't want these to be literal buildings. I want them to be representations of buildings. So these are somewhat abstract. Abstract art is art that uses shapes and designs and colors to represent things in real life. So you can keep going and keep creating, and you can make a really cool imaginary city, or you can research one that you've been to or like to go to, and you can make a scale model. So boys and girls, give the project a try. I had so much fun doing it. I can't wait to see what you do. So you can email me a picture at pricet@pearlriver.org. And if you master the scale model and you'd like to try to create another project, you can certainly go on another grade level and see what they're doing as well. Please make sure you're filling out the art form, which is located on the homepage of my website. And have fun, be creative, try the scale model, and tune in next week, and we will have more fun online learning. Talk to you soon, boys and girls. Bye.